Okay, great. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Punch, Kick, Choke Chat. It's Thursday night at 8:30 p.m. here in Toronto. I'm actually in my dojo, which I'll give you all a glance of. There's a bit of construction going on during COVID, but my home internet went crap, and it's actually kind of great to be in this space. In future nights, I might come here on purpose. Anyways, I'm really happy to see everybody. I'm really happy that you're all signing in with us and that you're here tonight for our repeat second guest after Hanshi Legacy was our first, Hanshi John Therien. I'm just so excited, as always, to get into the chat. And the thing that's so great about return guests is we really get to just get to the chat aspect of it. It's real nice to do the interview format with the people we don't know as well, but we're just online for about 20 minutes, and I'm really excited to share that with all of you. But as always, I get to share my relationship with Sensei Nicholas Suino. I get to introduce him as one of our co-hosts. He was our first ever guest on Punch, Kick, Choke Chat. And we just got on so well that we decided to ask Sensei Suino to be a part of it. He's an 8th Dan in Iaido. He's a 6th Dan in Judo, a 5th Dan in Japanese Jiu-Jitsu. And he underplays it, but I've stood across the man throwing punches, kicks. He fired a few leg kicks at me that woke me up like a motherfucker. And I just want to say thanks for that, Sensei Suino, because it made me think about my stand-up differently, even though you're very humble about your own stand-up. How's your night going? How's things?
Things are great. Like many people in our world, I'm dealing with a certain degree of lockdown, which isn't cool. But, this all started because of that. And no matter what happens going forward, as this conversational meeting continues to grow, I think we can all be thankful that it came together as well as it did. What an opportunity. I know you look forward to this every Thursday, Sean, and I certainly do too. That fourth Thursday when we don't do Punch, Kick, Choke, and Chat, I always feel like something missing from my day. Great to be here, as always. And I get the pleasure of introducing Sensei Randy Dauphin, who is sitting to my immediate left on the screen. I guess it depends on how you have your screen organized. I've said all that can be said, and virtually everybody on the call knows us to some degree, at least through these conversations. You do know that Sensei Dauphin is a two-time Triple Crown world champion in Panama and the Dominican Republic. You do know that he's a proud father of 3 children, all of whom I know well and love. Unlike, we're kind of gifted in our opportunity to sit with some really great martial artists. One of the things I think accomplished martial artists do well, besides kick ass, is see the potential in others to grow as human beings, to learn to kick ass, and then ultimately learn to kick ass in life and to help others. And I think Randy has got that in spades. The ability to work with people at where, what they bring with them, where they come from, and help them realize their potential in life, which is an amazing gift. We're all leaving a legacy, and I choose that word intentionally. As we learn in the martial arts, and we give the gifts that we got to others, which we always talk about on this. I hate to steal the best line that Randy ever gave me, but the way Randy does anything really is the way he does everything. To you, sir.
Thanks, Sensei.
I stole most of that from Mike Russell, by the way. I just passing it on.
Well, I really appreciate that. I appreciate those words. Always, I'm humbled by them and grateful for them. I'm super happy to be doing this. I hope we do it forever. It's so much fun. I just enjoy doing this so much fun. Sometimes I wish people could sign on the half hour before when we all sign on and we're all laughing and joking around, but you can't. That's only for us. So anyway, I want to thank Sean. I want to thank Sensei Suino. I want to thank Sensei Legacy and Sensei Therien for doing this. It's so much fun. The people that we're doing this with, I don't know how else to say it. It's so much fun, and I hope it leaves an echo through time digitally that everybody enjoys. I always get the opportunity to introduce the two Hanshis, and I'm not sure why that is. Probably because, as Sensei Suino says, I germinated this with some idea that everybody else ran away with and made better. But anyway, I'm super grateful to be able to do that. So when it comes to Sensei Legacy, we've talked about these things often. Student of Harold Warden, trained with Wally Slokey for a long time. Student of Richard Kim, long time student of Richard Kim. I consider him to be like a major disciple of Sensei Benny Allen. I think a lot of the things that happen in Legacy Chardonnay were influenced by Benny Allen, and currently a student of Anthony Sandoval, who is the father of White Crane here in North America. You know, one of those, like I said, Suino, I took the lead from him last week, and it's, you know, you introduce certain things consistently because people might sign in and you want them to always hear certain things, whichever episode they log into. But I want to share a quote that, and I believe that we were fighting in Los Angeles, myself and Nick McLaren and Sean Benson. Sean was on General Hospital at the time, working out in Los Angeles. And we went out there to hang out with him and train a little bit. And as often happens, this will give you a little insight into the type of an instructor that Sensei Legacy is. He woke us up at like 12:30 at night and said, I want to go fight. And so we all jumped up and we got in the cars and we went off to Sean's dojo to fight at 12:30. And I remember there was a guy who came in and he laid his yoga mat down and he was going to try and do some stretching while we were taping all our fighting equipment on. And said to me, go over there and tell that guy what's going to be happening in a second. And so I went over and said to him, hey, you know, we're going to be fighting in a minute and laying in the middle of the floor here might not be the best idea. And he kind of snapped at me and said, I'll be fine. And I thought, okay, well, he's doing yoga at 12:30 a.m. So I went to Sensei Legacy and said, he says he'll be fine. About 7 minutes after we started fighting, Sensei Legacy started to laugh, and we looked, and he was against the wall with his yoga mat, and he was sliding along the wall towards the door to try and get out of there. Because we were doing some serious fighting. But I guess the quote that I want to share with you is after that fight, Sensei Legacy, we all came in the four of us, and he said, this is gender neutral, by the way, because it can apply to anybody. It's guys like us that make guys like us. And one of the things about Sensei Legacy is he's able to attract guys like him to guys. Those guys come to him. He has super high standards. He's a member of the Black Belt Hall of Fame, 10th degree black belt. He trains his black belts. I think it was Scott Byron who once said, I've never gone anywhere where I didn't feel like I fit in. That's thanks to Sensei Legacy and the standards that he sets and the way he trains us. For me, I was thinking about it, and when we were training recently, I said something to him, and I just want to share it with everybody. And I think it's the more that you train, the more people tell you what you want to hear about you, right? They tell you how good you are and the things that you do good. But I think the longer you train, it's important for someone to tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. And I'm really grateful that Sensei Legacy is always that guy who tells you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. Sometimes you might want to hear it, but sometimes you might not want to hear it. But it's always what you need to hear. So, and the last thing I want to say is if you're on this call and you're wondering how do I approach him, he will teach you. You just need to sack up and make the contact, right? So, but tonight I'm going to introduce Hanshi John Therien. Super excited. I've been so looking forward to chatting with him. Never had a conversation or been with him where I wasn't feeling great and super excited. And it always seems like the conversation ends too soon when I'm chatting with Hanshi Therien. And I'm always grateful for the time he gives. If you go back to the last interview that we did, you'll see all kinds of, I go into great detail. He's a 9th Dan. He's received over 500 different awards. He runs a super successful chain of martial arts schools. He's an amazing promoter. He's the trainer and promoter of Jean-Yves Thériault, one of the greatest fighters ever in the history of kickboxing anywhere on the planet, not just in Canada, ever, anywhere.
Yes.
You know, I said it before, I'll say it again. You can judge a person by the company that they keep. And Hanshi John Therien keeps the highest company. If you are the sum of your 5 closest friends, he's a person who hangs around regularly with people like Wally Sloki, Alan Saleh, very good friends with Hanshi Cesar Bukowski, who we're going to have on the next episode. I like to use words to describe people. And when I think of Hanshi Therien, the words that come to my mind are intelligent, honest, super skilled. If you had any doubt about that, we've added some videos where you can see how skilled he is if you watch those videos. Hard worker, hardest working guy. I find him to be very innovating. He's a person who is never sitting around waiting for things to happen. He's always making them happen. He's ahead of the curve, making things happen. I find him to be very inspiring. And honestly, one of the things I really love and respect about him is just how accessible he is. Oftentimes when you reach that skill level, people on this call, we've all experienced those people where you can't actually get to them. They're so far from you, and no matter how you try, there's some barrier. Hanshi Therien removes all those barriers for everybody. He told me a story about where he was asked to come and teach at a place, and when he arrived there, somehow there was a mix-up in where people were going to be teaching, and he ended up teaching 4 yellow belt ladies, 4 yellow belt young ladies, children. And the person came to him and said, "Oh, no, this is a mistake. You're supposed to be over here." And he said, no, I'm going to teach these 4 young yellow belts. These are the ones that I want to teach. He's accessible. He's not, that's something that I'm learning from him, is to remain accessible. You know, in the end, he's a person that for me, when I think of him, I want to be better, because I want him to look at me and think I've helped Randy to become better. He makes you want to be better. He's a person that you want to think highly, like he inspires you to want to be better, because it would not be good for me personally, or people who know him to not feel like he thought highly of you. And you know, the one thing I want to say, and I said it to him, and I'll say it again, I said it in one of my posts, for me in COVID-19, the best thing about COVID-19 for me, if I could only say one thing, I would say it's been the conversations I've been able to have with Hanshi Therien, both on this call and just private conversations. I've enjoyed it so much, and I've enjoyed so much just getting to know him better and strengthening my friendship with him, which hasn't been a long friendship, but I feel it's a very good friendship. And that's my introduction for Hanshi John Therien.
Thank you, sir. That's a big introduction, and it hits me right in the heart to know that you think nice things about me. Thank you.
Yes, and also we're Habs fans, so that's
Yes.
Go Habs.
We got to get through the Penguins there first, so take it one period at a time. We'll see.
Pas de problème.
Right on. So everybody, we're going to jump into chatting, but I just want to throw it to everybody watching what I say every week. Punch, Kick, Choke Chat is about the chat. If you have a problem with the language, if you have a problem with the content, you get to learn how to deal with that within yourself, because the same way I feel is, I think we're all privileged to be a part of whatever these conversations are. And like Sensei Dauphin just said, you know, saying guys like us make guys like us, that's actually a gender neutral thing. And I really appreciate saying that, Sensei Dauphin. So if you need to translate anything for yourself to get the most out of it, do that, because there's a lot to be had when we chat with these masters. So you might hear some stuff you don't like. It's all good. The question link at the bottom, there's a chat. And I mean, that's actually one of the things that I get most excited about. I love my own questions. I love hearing what we have to chat about, but the people watching, you're the drivers of why this is interesting beyond us actually doing it in the coffee shop, why we're putting it online. So please put your questions there. Robert Schlumsky, our fantastic showrunner who's behind the scenes. He always puts that up at the beginning. Thank you for that, Robert. And I just want to quickly say thanks, Sensei Dauphin, for that memory of training with you, Sensei Legacy and Sensei McLaren. That's one of the best nights of my life, you know, and I really pray, if you're out there, that you have a relationship with your co-martial artists, the people you're coming up with, or your instructors, where that kind of thing happens, because training from like 12:30 to 2:30 in a 24-hour gym with like techno music playing and people sneaking out because they don't know what the fuck's happening. These are lifelong memories. And you know, I was complaining about COVID, and my girlfriend goes, "But if it weren't for COVID, would you have done the karate show?" And I looked at her, I was like, holy fuck. Like, I could literally say that the 6 months of COVID, I hope no one's sick or unhealthy in any real way. But for me, it's been worth it for this. Sensei Therien, how's it going?
It's going great, my friend, and I'm so happy to be here. And you know what? You guys make me feel so welcome. How can I say no? You know. So thank you for having me again. I enjoyed the last time. I enjoyed the other guests that you had, and so when I'm doing good, I've been isolated at home with my wife, and we've been doing a lot of things. So I made a list of everything I've been doing during the pandemic, and I hope the pandemic goes away because holy crap, I've been doing a lot of stuff. But one of the things I've done, I've done something. I like to do things for people. All right, and I'm a people person, and if I can help, and you know, so what I like to do is I like, you know, they say walk the talk and stuff. Well, I create the walk discreetly and put the people there and watch them go. And you got to give some people a break. So I've been busy and I've been training hard. I mean, I want to stay in the 20-20 club, but now I want to go down to the 10-20 club, which is 10 pounds too much and 20 years too late, you know, so that's, and so I'm moving in there. But you know, Randy, when you mentioned about that I'm accessible and stuff, I had to tell you a story, and I don't know if Doug was on at that time when we spoke and said that Doug Knispel is a great guy. He is a great guy. But I'm going to use him as an example that I've done with many others. I see this guy coming to Capital Conquest with his students. Now, those of you that know Doug, you know he's a quiet guy. He's sincere, he's the real deal. He gets on the mat and he trains hard. So one day, I called him over and I'm at Capital Conquest and I said, Doug, would you like to teach a class? And he sort of looks at me because we have a pretty good roster of fantastic teachers. So I get him on the mat. And I get him to teach, and he did as good as I thought he would do, and that's pretty good. Then every year I start to put him on, and it's my way to evaluate somebody, to give them a chance, and then see where they go with it. And I can tell you, this guy, because he's quiet, don't underestimate him. He's an excellent teacher. And that goes back to how things happened for me when I was a Fort Dan. I'm at a training camp in Europe, and I'm 4th degree black belt, and Richard Morris had the camp. We were at the camp, and one of the instructors, I don't know, there's a no-show, he's sick, I have no idea. And you've got about 30 seconds. He says, you're teaching on mat number 2. It was my chance. It was my break, and I thought it was my time, and it was. So I just got on there, and it was 9 a.m., and I got off the mat at 5 in the afternoon. One class, another class, another class, another class. But it was in Norway, actually. And the good news is they fed me in between the classes at noon, and they gave me a hot dog. See how far you can go in a hot dog. You know, you can work 9 hours or 8 hours. And, but you learn from those things. So if you create that and you give somebody a chance, right now, when you become a Hanshi, for example, it means that your better days, as far as you've done a lot of living and that you're moving on, most of the time you're in your 70s or 80s. And it's great because we got knowledge and we got to pass it forward. But I look at the new generations coming up. Holy crap. You know, when I was a young boy, a teenager, you know, my early teens training, and martial arts was still a mystery, and we had very little books and movies and whatnot to look at. Well, in my best dream, I was not half as good as what the guys are today, you know? And I say that with pride because we sort of contributed to all that, you know, like Angie Legacy did, and Wally Slokey did, and Bill Wallace, and I did some, and Caesar Burkowski, and when you put all, and many others. So if they take a little bit from here and a little bit from there and they put it together, you look at them today, well, you know what? When the day comes that I can't do what I do anymore for whatever reason, I'm 115 years old and my wife's pregnant and I got to look after the twins, something like that.
Damn Frenchman.
Yeah. So it'll be great to know that you exist, and that they will be sitting in this chair and in that chair and telling the stories on how they got up, but they will also make a big difference. So we're lucky because through the pandemic, as bad as it was, and I know some people who passed away from the virus. I know a lot of people who got the virus, and but it gave us a chance, at least for me, to make soul searching a little bit. The first week it was fantastic. My wife's working from home. I'm working from home. Like, life is good. And then it was the Groundhog Day. Every day is the same. So we had to get going. Not we, but me. I had to get going. And you have to motivate your troops. And in my case, I have people I look after in 40 countries. So they've got a problem. People were scared. And sadly, some schools have closed down, never to reopen. They've lost everything. And but we've done things like we did a virtual World Martial Arts Convention that lasted 5 weeks on video. We hired a movie producer. We had a studio that put it together. And we needed 40 of the great teachers. We ended up with 52. And during a pandemic, and because I'm not an IT guy, I had no clue how to do this. And when the Austrian told me, you're crazy to do this, and Hanshi told me, you are gonna, no, I'll get a team. You'll see, it'll be good. So 18 of those instructors, when they did the video, were rejected because of the quality of the video, how bad it looked and stuff. So we had to educate them. When I said, whoa, wait a minute. I had to educate myself because I'm one of the 18 that was rejected in the studio. So we put it all together, and we had a great producer and somebody that was fantastic. And that turned out to be great. But the best thing, the martial arts content in the video was fantastic. But my reason of doing that was to give people hope that we are not all going to die. We're going to be back someday. So that went well. And look at today. Quebec is open. Ontario's opening. Toronto, I think, next week in the Toronto. Yeah. But with conditions. And yesterday I'm doing my strength training. And somebody says, yeah, but you're opening up and it's only one person every 2 meters. There's no contact. I said, whoa. I've been in my condo for 3.5 months, not being able to go to the dojo. And now we're at the dojo. So yeah, we just got to suck it up a little bit more, but consider this, I'm a positive person, as a gift during this pandemic. And he says, well, I hear it's going to be another year. I said, imagine, only 12 months and then we're all back to normal. So if we keep the faith, and to all the teachers and school owners out there, guys, we're going to make this. We're going to come back strong. And the good news is many of us now are working together. People are calling. People are, we need help. We know who we can call. So it's coming. We're going to succeed again. And then in 50 years, we're going to look back and say 2020 was a real bastard of a year, but we survived it. So it's good.
Thanks for that.
Hanshi, it's interesting. I want to ask you a question because it's something I've said to, I think said to Swino and said to Lacey and Sean Benson. It's only the people who stick together through this COVID-19 that are going to know what it was like to get through it together.
Yes, absolutely. And but very few people are not part of the band. We're the same band, except you might play bass and the other guy plays drum and whatever instrument we're playing, but we're still making music, which is called martial arts, right? And those who don't want to play with the band, well, they better get a sax and go on the corner with a little box and then sell their homemade CDs where we can be the biggest band, So I think that to survive this, the days of having your own school, your own style, and being at the corner, and the guy at the next corner is the bad guy, and he's not half as good as you are, and so that's gone. You know, that is gone. And you know, I know you had Bill Wallace there. He fought guys of every style, right? He stayed on top. So it's, if he would have lost, would it have been due to the style? It'd have been due to the fighter. So yes, you're right, Randy. The more we stick together, the better we're going to be.
So I want to pop back to something you said, and I actually, as I have 3 of my instructors on the call here, I want to get their opinion as well. But at what point, Hanshi Therien, and then everybody else, if you'd please answer, at what point does your ego give in to wanting your students better than you? Because presumably as somebody who's becoming fucking amazing, you're winning. And then there's a point where you're cresting something and you're no longer the winner of that thing. And your students, like you said, are hopefully better. But is that a struggle? Is that something you have to work towards and be conscious of?
So, well, it depends on the person. Some people have an ego and they can't take it at all, you know? And I know way back in the 70s, there was a few guys that they had students that were so good, but they left because they couldn't handle the teacher. So in my case, and I can only speak for my case, for me, I don't know if I have an ego. Maybe I do, but not about that. I have so many students that have surpassed me in certain things, right? And they became excellent. And I'll give you one example. Jean-Yves Thériault, the Iceman, 23 times world kickboxing champion.
Yay.
He's a student in jiu-jitsu. He's a blue belt. We go to tournament. He's great. But he gets disqualified, not for punching the guy in the face. One time he hit the guy in the chest and he cracked his chest bone, you know, with the reverse punch. Boom! This guy kicks like a mule and everything else. So he wants to succeed. So he's training, and I'm training all the guys. And 6 months down the road, most of them are better than me at doing something. And you have to remember where we go from traditional martial arts to point fighting to semi-contact to full contact. Well, we don't have experience too much. So I got another trainer, you know, to work with him. And I became the manager and I became the promoter. The only reason I became the promoter was to create more events for my guys to compete. Now, that said, Jean-Yves Thériault understood this position. I never had to tell him he had to train. He did train. And he would walk in and I'd say, we had a B&B agreement. The B&B agreement is I book the guy, he beats him up, okay? And if we can understand that, we go far, right? So he would walk in, and let's say it's today that he walks in for training, and I'd say, hey, champ, I got a fight for you. When? August 25th. Where? Chicago. Against who? The number 4 contender. Thank you. That was it. He'd go on train like he was training before, and then we'd line up the sparring partners. Here's the tickets for flying. Here's the hotel. Here's the video on the guy you're going to fight. We all did our job. So, Sensei Nick, to answer that, if you can put your ego aside, your 3 instructors that are listening on this program, listen to what I'm saying. You might be better than your sensei physically, and I don't know your age, but you should be because you've been taught properly by him. But there's something he has not taught you yet, and that's the experience of life in martial arts that he has brought to the table. So if you are better than him at certain things, help out, all right? But never try to compete against your teacher. It's not good. One time I had dinner, and several years ago, about 20 years ago, I had, I think, some of the best young teenage black belt, bar none. And it was maybe 7 or 8 of them. So I invited Ben Ladouceur, Bobby Ladouceur, Alain de la Rosa, and Alain Moussi, who was now in movies, and another guy for dinner with their spouse. And of course, we start to talk. And by this time, now they're in mid-30s. They have family. Life is good. And and I said, you guys were so awesome. They said, yes, but nobody could duplicate. None of us can duplicate what you did. And the reason, and I told them it's because you don't want it bad enough like I did, and you never understood the formula. And the formula that I had, and I still have that today, is simple. You're not a one-man band. I mean, I can show you things, and Hanshi Legacy can show you another thing, and Jean-Yves Theriot will show you something, and Randy, and then Nick. But if we pool ourselves together, if I've got somebody that's a better fit for Sensei Nick, I'll put him with Sensei Nick, right? And we had the best in the world to come up and train at the do seminars and then stay and train with us. So you learn from everybody. And if you can put a team, like we said in Montreal Canadiens, and we are big fans. If you go back in the day of Toe Blake, he would coach, open everything, he'd coach everybody, and even do the stitches, you know, in between the rounds or in between the periods. Now they have a coach for goalie in hockey, one for defense, one for the centerman. They have somebody to open and close the gate. They have their own personal trainer. They have their cut man. They have their nutrition people, their strength guys. It's a big machine. Well, I was not at that level of a big machine, but I always had a great team. And if I put a great team, and the instructors that I had are people that I had been teaching from white belt to whatever level of black belts that they were. But I knew that this guy was very, very good in throws. This other guy was very good in fighting. This other guy was power kicker, and so on and so on. And if you put a team together, they all feel part of who you are. So your ego doesn't have a chance to kick in because everybody, it's not a one-man band. Somebody said, when you advertise Capital Conquest, very rare you will advertise the names of the teacher. And I said, I know, but that's purposely. If we say Montreal Canadian hockey team, we want to go and see them play because they've been losing for the last many years, but they're still the Montreal Canadian. There's a dynasty behind them. So it's the same at Capital Conquest. One thing you know, there's going to be great teachers. Two, you're going to have one hell of a good time. You're going to come back a better person and a better martial artist for having trained there. And you're going to meet a lot of people and have fun. If you build up one person and you call him John Smith, he's one of your black belts, you don't have an ego, but he's better than you, maybe John Smith will have an ego. And that will create, but if it's the Sean, Sensei Sean's dojo and Sensei Sean's team, there's no chance of ego because everybody is part of a team, right? So that's what it is. So to answer your question, make sure it doesn't kick in. And if anybody gets bigger than the band, well, I hate to say it, I've had a few of those and they went to play for themselves, you know.
I love that idea, bigger than the band. And by the way, to the people watching, you know, we're not here to promote Hanshi's Capital Conquest, but go. We went last year. It was incredible. It was awesome. Hanshi Legacy, Sensei Suino, do you want to chat about that idea at all? Is that of interest to you?
I could mention something. I think it's also the type of martial art. You need a classical martial arts club so that things are already set up. You have to have a sensei. Your sensei will go before you and you will see all those things happening in reverse. He will lose his ego in order to let me in. I have to lose my ego in order to let Randy in, or everything stops. Those schools don't last. They fight amongst each other. It's like John says, we're a team, and that's what it is. We're a school, and we just have to follow the rules. Your sensei teaches you the way.
That's right.
Sensei means man servant, right? Or woman servant.
Yes. So well said, my friend. So well said.
Yeah.
Sensei Suino, you want to chip in on that at all?
Well, I think you're absolutely right. The fact that Hanshi Legacy and Hanshi Therien are able to put aside their egos, despite having vast talents, is the reason they're so successful at what they do. I got to tell you, it's something I struggled with for years. It was really hard for me to admit that I had students who might be able to beat me in a judo match or you know, kicking and punching. Really tough. But eventually, when you have talented enough students, you just have to step back and go, oh my God, let me lead this place and make it. You know, my job now is an analyst and a cheerleader and a businessman. My job is to keep the dojo open so that these guys can prosper. And I'll just tell you one quick story. Many of you know one of my best students, Dan Holland, who is just an absolute physical phenom. And if I had any thought of ego left, it went away during our last trip to Japan, where we went to many incredible places to train. Randy was with us. And at every place, we go to Sato Tadayuki Sensei dojo to train in Jiu-Jitsu and Aikido. And after an hour, Dan is his training partner for every demonstration. And on the way out, he says, Dan, I want you to go back to America and hold up the banner for my Jiu-Jitsu in the United States. So then the next day we go to train with Nobetsu Sensei in karate. He's one of the preeminent Goju-ryu instructors in the world. He has thousands of students all over Japan. We train with him, and after an hour, he goes, Dan, your basics are incredible. When you go back to America, I want you to hold the banner up for my Goju-ryu in North America. And then we go to train with Yahagi Sensei, who's the soke of Yushin Shoichi-ryu, which is an ancient style of swordsmanship. Same thing, right? After 20 minutes, the attention of the sensei is always on Dan Holland. He's just a phenom, and he is as humble can be. But if I had any, and that's just one example, if I had any hope, any thought of standing in the way of my students or being anything other than someone who helps them have a place to train, gives them a little soft guidance now and then, and tests their skills to the best of my ability, those have long gone, but I have to tell you, it was not an easy thing for me to let that go.
Thanks, Sensei. And before we pivot to Sensei Dauphin, he won't talk about this, and this isn't Sensei worship. I think you're in a unique position, Sensei Dauphin, because I don't believe you have any students who are physically more capable than you, partly because of how you drive yourself physically and your age. What are your thoughts on all that? And that's just a fact for the people listening. You might argue, but
maybe. Like, I mean, I won't, there's you yourself.
None of his students are better than him.
Thank you, Hanshi. I mean,
maybe, so, but physically, that might not be true. Like a person like Robert Chalumsky, I can beat because I trained him. But if I was a different person, maybe, I'm just saying maybe, like, so I think, so to go to your question specifically, Sean, you know, like Sensei Suino, I struggled with it in the beginning, and you were there in the beginning. So, you know, like oftentimes I just spent my time beating the shit out of people because it was more about me than it was about them, right? Like it was about, I was on this path. I was trying to forge myself into this thing. And quite frankly, what I was trying to forge myself into was something that I wanted to be that I had seen. Like I wanted to be this thing. Then I saw Sensei Legacy and I said, bingo, that's it. That's what I want to be right there. And so at first you start and it's like, okay, I want to train. And I've been blessed. Then Sensei Suino is along. There's other people on this call. Sensei Copeland is on this call. He was there from the beginning. It's easy to be inspired by these people physically. But then at a certain point, you're like, okay, well, that's not enough. Look at how they teach. Look at how many students they have. Look at how good they are as an instructor. Look how many people. So then, again, I'm blessed because I have these people. I have Sensei Suino. I have Hanshi Montalvo. I have obviously Sensei Legacy. Again, I'll mention Sensei Copeland. I have these people, and it's like, okay, well, just being physically good isn't good enough. Like you actually have to teach. And what does being a teacher mean, right? So then you have these examples. And, you know, then I just go, this happened later, Sean, for me, is this higher order of principles that you try to operate by. right? Which is, as a sensei, number one, when you're making decisions, is this good for the art? Is this something that's good for the art? Well, then you can make that decision easily. And then next, is it good for my association? Is this good for Legacy Shorin-ryu Karate Jitsu? Good for the art? Good for the association? It's probably a good. And then next has to come the students. Is it good for my students? I have to put myself forth in that order of operations when I'm making decisions as a sensei. And, you know, quite frankly, this might be controversial from the other people who are senior to me, and I stand to be corrected by them, but it also depends on the student. There are some students who you will not let get past you because they don't deserve to get past you. Something will stop them from getting past you. They have an ego. They have something that you know will not be good for the art. It will not be good for the association, and it will not be good. And the sensei, in my opinion, it's also important that they don't let those people get past them. They don't let those people get to that level. You know, the right student never sees themselves before their student, and it makes it easy for you as a sensei to promote them up and keep pushing them because they always put themselves second to the sensei, no matter how much you push them forward.
Yeah, that's well said, Randy. And I'll tell you something though. Nobody loses respect when you do it right. And you might have students, or I might have, and I'll speak for myself. I have students that are way better than me in certain things. And some of them have their own schools. I calculated a few years ago that there was close to 200 different schools off my first lineage and off their lineage somewhere around the world. Some small schools, some big schools, not all Therien school, not all affiliated with who we are or what we do. That's their choice, but they never lost respect for me, and they never lost respect for the other fine instructors that were there. So, but if you have one or two, and I have to, like I said earlier, some of them I have to say, hey, this is not for you. You can't train here anymore. Goodbye. But I'm #1 contender in the world. I said, I know, I brought you there. Good luck, and I'll bring another one. Simple. You know, that happened once, you know. So,
Hanshi, you were going to jump in after Sensei Dauphin?
I got past it. There's something.
Yeah, right on. Sensei Dauphin, you mentioned Robert Schlumsky, and he has a question for you, Sensei Therien. So this is from Robert, who you know.
Yeah.
What does someone need to have a successful dojo in the year 2020, and how does that differ from when you first opened your dojo?
wow, that's a very, very good question, Robert.
Yeah.
When I first started the dojo, it was, yikes. You know, Moses was there, and he was just off that little bamboo bed, you know, like it's so long ago. It's in the 53rd year now. We had, we really had nothing. We just wanted to train, and we had a lot of sweat equity to put into it. Today, to have a successful dojo, you need to have a lot of disinfectant and stuff, and that's just a joke on the side, but that's temporary. But you need to have a nice place to train. It's got to be clean. It's got to have the proper equipment, but you need mentally, you got to be prepared not to teach from 7 to 8 and count to 10, you know, because anybody can get in front of 1, 2. You need to teach the students. And the more that you care for your students, and the more you show the passion for them, they will develop. If you're not ready to do that, don't open a school. You know, please don't do that. You're hurting yourself. You're hurting everybody in the community. So compare back in the day, we had that passion. And I've kept that passion all along. And as we moved from one location to the next, or open a new location, when we had a few more dollars, well, we bought better mats. Then we bought some equipment. You have to keep up with time. And I think right now, everything under the sun for training, or almost everything, has been developed and is available. So you need to have the proper equipment, but mentally is where running a school it's where it's at. You know, like you eat, sleep, talk, walk, your martial arts school. And don't forget who brought you there. We were talking about that. And if there's something that you're not sure, knock on the door. I get calls from people from all over. They have a problem with their schools. How can I better this? How can I better that? If they don't have that right feeling or passion for the martial arts, they're never going to make it. Because it's a tough thing to do to have a martial arts school. It's not that easy. You know, you walk in, everybody bows to you, everybody calls you beautiful titles, you know. They respect you, life is beautiful, they pay to come. But there's more to that than being on the mat, you know, for an hour and a half to 2 hours or 3 hours. It's a constant thing. Randy, you said so many times that you've learned a lot by driving with Hanshi Legacy and somebody else and listening on the conversation as you're going from where you are to maybe Michigan or Windsor. And then you start to grasp. You mentioned that also when you look at Sensei Copeland, when he would drive from where he is 2 hours in a bad storm, you think this guy did not want to learn? He wanted to learn. And I think it was Hanshi Legacy. He says, no, don't come here. It's too far in this kind of weather. Go over there. And all of that put together is a sign of a fantastic instructor and most of all, a leader. So Robert, it's a lot I've said a lot to your question because there's not one fix. If you open a book, how to open the dojo, that's not going to tell you the inside part. It'll tell you what you need to buy, sign a lease, pay first month, last month's rent, make a loan, do this, do that. Hope for the best, start to promote. That's all materialistic things, right? And those that have been around, if you look at the top guys at the top, these people have been around with schools for a long, long time. And some days you jump out of bed and you get to the dojo because you know it's going to be an 8 hours training session with seminars and it's going to be great. Some other days you walk out of bed and you say, damn, I got to get there again because I got to wash this, wash that. And you have some people that you need to address and some other problems. But then the student will come in, he'll walk in and he will be an A+ student. You look at that student, he's a white belt and he's almost doing things physically, a way a black belt is doing. And you go, wow, if I got a champion here, 3 months later, he's gone with his yellow belt, you know? So, yeah, but then you have the guys that are working hard every day, and they're training hard. And those are the ones that you build the backbone of your school with, because you can always make them great.
Well, this is great because this actually pivots into a question from Jean-Robert Baudin. Maybe I'm over-Frenching that.
It's good. It's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah.
How many times did you have to rebuild your club in Vanier after a fire? I remember 2, but think it was actually 3 separate locations that were burnt down. And here's the real question. What was the formula you used to always rebuild stronger?
I think it's what I had in my heart, you know, like I'm a 100% martial artist when the going is good, and I'm 100% when the going is bad. The first fire, 1973, some kids, there was an old building on Montreal Road, which is one of the main streets where all those building dens were made out of wood. And some kids took some cardboard boxes and lit matches to it. They were young kids fooling around and the whole block burned down. So out and I lose things. And I lost things in there that I can't replace. I had photos with Bruce Lee, that's gone. And so's Bruce Lee, you know, so you look at certain things along those lines. But we, for 6 months, I had opened another location on Bank Street, and I had one of my top instructors, Jerry Pettier, teach there. So we all relocated. Ottawa's not that big, so we went to the south end of Ottawa. We were in the east end. Then we reopened, and then in 1979, we opened, there was a karate school that had closed down. And we took that location. It was rectangular. It was, I think it was 360 Montreal Road. It was 3,000 square feet. It was a perfect rectangular school for anybody to do a martial arts schools. No AC, but there was no AC then anyhow, but there was windows all around the building. So that one was an insurance job. They tried to torch it. Jean-Yves Thériault was in the building. No, Jaif saw the people starting, and he lived close by, so he started to chase them. They ran away. That was a Saturday night. And on the Tuesday night, again, Jaif has just finished a class. He's got 6 or 7 people, and they put a bomb in the building. Boom, and that torch. That one hurt me because I had put my last penny, less than a year, every dollar I had went to open that place. And, you leave and you need to have an omen that's going to say, listen, these fires are not going to happen every 6 years, just move on. To make matters worse, I had $50,000 of insurance, so I felt good. The insurance company gave me $4,000. They were the biggest crook I've ever seen. I'm not going to say what I did and told that guy in his office because let's put it this way. But then my black belt, you've got a little hook that you can put on the door, on the top of the door frame, and there's a hook, so my gi was there. But I had taken my gi home to get it washed, but my belt was there. The door is burned down. There's the top frame and the bottom frame that is standing with the hinges. My belt did not burn. And one of the firemen that went in was a student of mine. He was a brown belt. He took it. And then he gave me a call and he says, so what are you going to do? I said, I don't know. I don't have the heart to start again, but we had, this was the heyday Jean-Yves was fighting. We went to a lot of tournaments. I had 9, 10 great kickboxers. He says, look what I found. That gave me a push, I think, that I needed mentally and in my heart, And you say, I know it's material, but that black belt was a lot of sweat. So we found another location and we stayed there almost 27 years, so it was a cement door, cement everything. And we had 7,500 square feet. Some of the people listening here tonight might have been there. Carl Preslin was in BC, was training in Ottawa with Harry Villeneuve. And I think I'm sure he came to the dojo at that time. Jean-Robert Baudin that you mentioned, right? He also came in. He was training. So that was the House of Champions, that one. That's where when people came in town, the Gracies came there for something and they said, can we roll on these mats? We build an international reputation there. And that's where John Therien became Sensei, Renshi, Shihan, Kiyoshi, I build, and that's why when you understand your role, because the guys couldn't get fight, well, I started to promote. Scared hell to promote because I was not a rich man. And I said, if I lose on this, so you work a little bit harder, like the fighters, you lost the first round, you lost the second round, you got one more round to knock him out. Otherwise, you're doomed. So everybody became who they are today in that St. Anne Street in Vanier. And the reason, again, why I came back after 2 fires, the first one, it was kids. I had a guy training with us. We nicknamed him Billy Jack. He was not too smart, and not too swift. And I'm watching the building burn down. And it was May 15th, 1973. And he says, too bad there, Sensei. Now you're in the streets. You got no more dojo. I said, get out of here, It's not what you want to hear. But I think when my students showed me my belt, it gave me a push. And then we opened it. But I don't wish any tragic situation like that. It could have been worse. Somebody could have gotten hurt in the fire. But you know why, I know why I was born to do what I do today, right? But you're going to be challenged along the way. And I was challenged and there was other challenges. So that's my story after the fires.
I love that. And I always like putting quotes around certain things, partly for the viewers, but partly for myself. And, again, the idea that you just didn't want to go on. You're just like, I can't do it again. And then you did. And I always think that's important for us as martial artists to hit that moment of, I can't do one more. And then you do one more. And then you go, oh, right, I did another one. And it keeps happening that way.
Is after the second fire, the first fire was, Yeah, it was sad. It was this, it was that, but I had another school that we could go to. Then on the second fire, I had just pumped every cent I had in that sucker, you know, and it was nice. And I think I was hurt. They put a bomb in your school. I think about that. This is not little boys playing with matches. This is a goddamn bomb that goes boom. And I had Jair with students in there. And it was shock, you know, by saying, you're going to open again. I don't know. I just didn't know. But when that omen, because the fireman said, come with me. So we went through, because you're not supposed to walk in, you know. So we walked in. He was a fireman. He showed me the door and he showed me where the belt was. And it was like magic that it did not burn. Like there was soot on it, you know, it was dirty, but nothing that the old Ringer washing machine would not fix. You know?
And so, you still got that belt?
No, no. Wait.
What the fuck?
No, but here's what happened to me. I gave it to my son, who is a third-degree black belt, and he was very, very good fighter. And he put it in his club bag. And one night after training, he says to me, he says, Dad, I'm going out with the guys. Can you take my bag home with you and I'll see you at home? I said, put it in my car. You know damn well you leave it in the trunk of the car. He put it on the back seat. And I went somewhere else, parked the car. Some people broke the window, stole the bag. But there was no fire, but they stole the damn bag and the belt. We never seen it. And every time I'd go somewhere, because my name was on it, right? And every time I'd go somewhere, I sort of checked, you know, to keep, man, I would have loved to find that belt one way or the other, you know? Yeah.
I'm glad you told that. I'm glad you told that story, because I hope I walk in somewhere and see somebody wearing a belt that says John Therien on it, because I'm going to bring it back to you personally. I'm going to bring it right back to you.
Bring the guy with it, you know? The belt also, it was like a black piece of material that was embroidered, and some of the letters were like, there was like a hole, and then that was sewn on the belt. I know, and imagine if I had that today. It's like, I have grandchildren now, and one of them is training at Northern Karate. So I've kept a couple of pieces for him, but that belt would have been great one day when he's black belt, you know, so. But go fire, guys.
I was just thinking, maybe it's all the sweat that you did that kept it from burning.
You know what? I like what you're saying. I like the analogy of that. And it's like there's somebody looking after us. You know, being from Rimouski, you never thought you'd be where you are today, and being in the Hall of Fame and being a Hanshi and having a legacy in front of you with all these students everywhere. That's not why you did karate. You got into that because you wanted to do something, and it came to get you, not you to get it, you know? And then you grow and look where you are today. So, yeah.
Merci.
Sensei, I have a question for you from Sensei Connery Copeland, one of our guests, one of the, you know, all of our friends. Sensei, he says, great to see you again. With all your martial arts experience, what would you change about martial arts going forward if you could?
Great question. And by the way, I listened to your show, Sensei, and it was great. So it was nice to see you again. It had been years. You still look great. What would I change? In all the new material that people are teaching, in all the new materials that that people have learned because they're sharing with everybody, I can't touch that because I don't know enough and I'm not qualified to do that. I think what some schools could use a little bit more not hardship, but a little bit more. I call it sweat equities. Maybe some of the people could train a little bit harder. When we go back to the 60s, being a brown belt was damn good. Being a blue belt was hard, was tough. Exams were tough and demanding. So maybe I would tighten the squeeze a little bit on that side, not because it's going to make them a better black belt or a better student, because that's the way I see things, right? I like to teach, and I like when I'm done that we're all full of sweat. And we had a big night, and we had things. So that could be rearranged, and some schools still have that. So don't get me wrong. But also is that when there was a tournament, and we speak tournament, there was not one every day or two or three every weekend. There was very few tournaments, but when you got there, you knew you're going to have your hands full. You'd look around. It's like on one of the show, Hanshi Legacy, I mentioned, yeah, I fought Wally Slokey. And he said, yeah, how did that go? Well, the first 10 seconds was very, very nice, you know? I remember you saying that. And I'm driving my car the other day, actually, and I started to laugh thinking of that because it's so true. That guy was a monster and so good, you know? So, but they were competing, those guys. And so when you competed, you'd go to a tournament. I didn't do many tournaments, but I attended a lot of tournaments. And it was George Sylvain, my teacher, was a big, strong heavyweight. And he was a mean machine. But he was not the gifted fighter like Wally Slokey, Harry Villeneuve, Rick Joslin, you know, Conrad, you know, like all those guys. So, but he was mean, and he had to use what he had. He was a southpaw, and he could punch hard, couldn't kick too well, but he could punch very hard. So he would eat raw meat for a week. And I said, why? He says, I'm going to be a real animal in there. So that was his philosophy, right? So maybe to come back to Sensei Copeland is if the tournaments that we have today are good tournaments, but it would have been nice, or it would be nice to have one big, open, strong tournament, similar to the days that Sensei Copeland and company and Sensei Legacy and everybody came up the ranks. It was crazy in the 60s and 70s. It really was. It's faster today. It's more precise. Techniques are beautiful. But there was a little bit of killer instinct that was then. Not that it was better, but I personally would like to see a little bit more fight. I've seen some guys in the new generation of today, man, they can do a kata like there's no tomorrow. They can handle a weapon the same thing. They can kick, they can punch. They are very good. And I know that if they were challenged and you take some of the best that they have there and you challenge them once a year in a true blue strong tournament, I think that our sport or our karate or jiu-jitsu or taekwondo would be so strong. I was at John Duvris' school yesterday morning. And there's a little boy, he's 9 years old or 10 years old. As a matter of fact, I told John to put it on Facebook, and he did today. So look, John Duvris. The kid is 9, 10 years old. You should see that kid throw kicks. Flop, 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 boom. You know, like, I look at that kid, and what I see there was better than anybody in the 60s or 70s for the speed and the timing. Except that kid would not fight like that in the 60s, 70s. You know, they would squat, boom, and he'd be dead, you know. But if they grow up with that kind of training and that kind of attitude for the fight, I think it would go good. So Sensei Copeland, let's make that happen. Once a year, we'll put a team together. We'll bring the best of Europe against the best Canadians and the best American and the best South America. So, well, I'll promote it. It'll be great.
Yeah. I don't think anyone here minds that idea. So what I hear with that, Sensei, is that's like internally, how as martial artists, we stay tough. A question from Carl Presland, with so many so-called McDojos coming and going, what can we do to educate the general public? And I really like this question. Like, how do you let the average person know that some of the videos they're seeing of bad karate, of McDojo karate, aren't karate, aren't Japanese jiu-jitsu, are shite?
Well, something that gets me is like you look on Facebook and you see these people that are really phonies, you know. If my grandmother was alive, she would tell me, these guys are bad, you know what I mean? And she never did martial arts. But what gets to me is they have the following. They have students. So if you look at a McDojo, first of all, check how long they've been around. And You look, Northern Karate is going to be 50 years old. Therien Jiu-Jitsu is his 53rd year. There's a lot of school that's been around for 25 years and more. So that's one sign. If you're a Mech Dojo, you don't last. Number two is if you go to, I tell this to some of my students that were transferred or moved away for their job or education. And I'd say, well, if I knew where they were going, and if I know it's close to your school and I know it's a good school, I'd say, go there. If I was not sure, I'd say, look, back in the day, you'd take the yellow pages and you'd see all the schools. And I'd say, go and visit 3 or 4 of them and stay more than one night. Like you'll go, let's say Monday over there, Tuesday over there, Thursday, Wednesday, whatever. Then the ones you like, go back again once or twice. Just make sure it's not a fluke and check it out. Now, those are people that were training with me before that were going away. So they know a little bit right from wrong to start with. But the Mech Dojos will always be around. The first sign, you know, if you tell somebody to go in, and if somebody's listening and they want to find a good school and you don't know anybody there, ask them how long it takes to be a black belt and where these people come from. And today you can Google everybody, you know. If you Google John Therien, they tell you what I had for breakfast this morning. Everything's there. You just don't know how it gets there, but it's there. And if not so, you know somebody in martial arts that is good, and then reach out to them. So that's my answer to that.
I appreciate that. You know, it's interesting in my experience when I walked in, I was immediately, Hanshi, if you don't mind me saying, Legacy, drawn to you as an instructor. But my decision to stay with the club was looking at the black belts. Because I was like, wait, Hanshi Legacy didn't teach himself. He taught his black belts. And that's what made me go, oh, fuck, every one of them's a killer, so I want to be one of them.
But that's what I was saying, you know, when we were talking about egos. Your students, they look at, you know, they might be better than you in a few things, but they look at who brought everybody there. Yeah. You know, you're on the ship, and this is a big ship now. You can't put the brake because it's not going to stop. It's going to take a while for it to stop. Same thing when you turn. So when you start your own school, you got a rowboat. And you might know where you're going, but it's a lot of work and it's a lot of effort. And then maybe you got a little 9 horsepower. Pop, 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 pop. It starts to be a little bit better. But you get to the big ship, it's something awful. And just while we're talking about great people and stuff, I think everybody knows now, Doug Rogers passed away 2-3 days ago of cancer. I think it was 78 or 79. Doug was a judo champion in Canada. He was like Wally Slokey was for karate in Canada and Doug Rogers was for judo. So he's in the Hall of Fame with you also, Hanshi. And he was a very, very talented and nice person. So rest in peace, Chad. You know?
Yes.
Hanshi, before I jump into the 10 questions that are new for you, because you're a return guest, I just want to say thanks, because if you're listening, you can hear how often he's referencing other episodes, and it really means a lot how supportive you are of our show, Punch, Kick, Choke, Chat. So thanks for that. You know, it's one thing to come on it. It's another to support the other guests on it. And it means a lot. And I think most of the guests are like that, but it's really nice. And it's
just before you get to the questions regarding the episodes, Robert's going to put this on audio also. It might be done now.
Yep.
Because I do an hour and a half of cardio, which is speed walking.
Yep.
And that's to stay sane when you do that, where I'm doing it now. It's like a dungeon. So shoot the question, my friends.
Great. So by the way, just so the people watching know, and I try and say this each week, but I might forget, these are on YouTube. We put them up later. And also, like on my iPhone, I go to the podcasts, type in Punch, Kick, Choke, Chat, and it all comes up. So if you are looking for another way to get at this, or you want to re-listen to an episode, then that's the way you can find it. Round 2, returning guest, question number 1. If you could give your 25-year-old self a piece of advice, what would it be?
Wow, get a fireproof dojo. We'll start with that.
Oh, shit. Yeah, you went there.
You know, give myself some advice it's very simple. It's just don't get discouraged. Keep pushing, keep training. because when you're 25, you train hard, and when you get some hardship, you know you're going to stay, but then you know it's not the end of the world. So that's the route I would tell him to go, you know. And I'll say, forget about hair. It's over. It's, you know,
Overrated.
overrated. You know?
Best fight you've ever had and why?
I'm sorry?
Best fight you've ever had and why?
I'll go back. I fought a guy when I was a brown belt in Montreal. His name was Ed Sowinski. And I don't know where he is today, but he was training in Ottawa with George Sylvain, and I was training with George Sylvain. This guy was about 6'5", and there was no weight class. You know, it was blue, it was white and yellow belt, orange, green, blue, brown, I think, or something like that. And he was so tall and so strong and so powerful, and he was good. And I knew, and I took a hell of a beating before I could get in and score on him. You know, like I would block. I was about 155 pounds, and he was about 225, 230, plus how tall he was. And I would do a block on a kick, and I'd go up about a foot from the mat and go flying and then come back. And I know that that's when you learn to suck it up and have a straight face, and you never hurt. But after that fight, you go to the washroom and you go, shit, that was hard, you know? But that was, to me, was in a competition, that was the best fight. And I've had some great stuff with some of my students when we're preparing them for tournaments, like Vic Theriault and Norm Beauchamp, Conroy Nelson, and they were all monsters. So I stopped fighting them. I just coached them. Smart.
So on that note, the worst fight you've ever had and why?
I'll go back to George Sylvain on that one. You know, when you're young, you think you were talking about your 3 students listening in, and you ask about this and that, not because they're bad guys. So I'm training with George Sylvain, and this was, he'd close his school on Thursday night. He'd lock it up, and we would train. We would do kickboxing training. And we would train about an hour and a half, a lot of rounds and a lot of kicks. And then we'd put the gloves and we'd spar. And again, I might be 168 at that time, and George was a big heavyweight. And I was just throwing everything at him, and it was all scoring. And he just kept looking, and then he hit me. And after I got up, and I was still a little bit foggy, I knew everything went bad. And you know what I learned there is respect your sensei, even if you're a little bit faster, because he's going to remind you who's the boss. So that was my reality to things. And I was young, and I think that's a fight that went really wrong. Started well, and it went really bad.
Sensei Dauphin used to say to me, feel free to escalate it, but don't be mad when I escalate it too.
Yeah.
What living martial artist would you like to meet, and what would you like to train with them?
I've trained with a lot of different people. I'd have to go back to my generation of sensei and training. You know, now when I do my training now, it's different than when I was younger. For example, if I go to Hanshi Legacy's dojo and we lock the door and we train the 2 of us, and I can say to him, let me show you something about this. And it's going to be a fun afternoon. Then he says, let me show you something about this. At that level, it doesn't matter how fast you shoot, how hard you fight or whatever. It's knowledge, and it's training tips that you can pass down. So I would say that it would be somebody in along those lines like Hanshi Legacy. It might seem that because you're on camera that I'm saying that, but it's not. It's if ever we do that and we both walk out of there being a better person and having learned something, I think, to me, that's very good. You know.
Favorite seminar you've attended?
I'm sorry?
Favorite seminar you've ever attended?
Oh boy. In jiu-jitsu a long, long time ago with Richard Morris from England. As crazy as he was a great martial artist too, you know, and he was one of my sensei. So that was a great one. I've attended camps, And at camps, it's like capital conquest. So you have a chance to get on the first class with this instructor and then that instructor. So if you put your day of training together, the World Convention always brought the best of people. I was in Russia doing a seminar, and I like to teach. And then if I'm not teaching and there's something going on, I like to watch or participate. And there was a Russian guy there doing stuff in jiu-jitsu that I was impressed with him, but I was watching. I wish I would have been on the mat. You know, you just don't, when you're a certain level, you just don't walk on the mat. You ask permission, you might bow and you get there because it's another good teacher and you want to do it out of respect. So yeah, that would be about it. I think Richard Morris in the beginning. And I'll tell you though, Alain Sailly, if you've never seen Alain Sailly teach, watch. You'll swear to God that he's a magician, you know? So he's good. I can't do what he does because I can do part of it, but he's fantastic to watch.
Sensei Dauphin, you know his...
Yeah, I trained with him at Shihan Bill Adams' dojo once. Amazing instructor. So much fun, so much knowledge. 3 hours went by and it felt like it was 5 minutes.
Yeah. Great teacher.
Next question. Of all time that you feel like thinking of, best fighter who ever lived?
I have to go with several because the last time I was impressed beyond anything else was the first time I saw Bill Wallace fight in a karate tournament. It was in Ottawa, and it was the Canadian Open that André Langelier had promoted. The first fight he did was against Webb Corcoran from Ottawa. Webb is 76, 77 years old now. Webb is a hell of an athlete. He was a football player, rugby player, baseball, pitch and no-hitter. You know, he's an all-around super athlete, and he was a great black belt in karate. His kicks were average, but his punch and the timing with his punch was unbelievable. So they say fight, and you know Wallace fights from the side, you know, like this. Webb came in with a punch. Now, a fast punch, okay? Wallace took his knee up, hook kicked him straight in the face, brought his foot down, and just looked at him before the punch got to Wallace. And I went, I look at the people with me and said, did that happen or did I dream that? That, to me, I think it took about 3 weeks to analyze it and to appreciate the speed that he has. He was an excellent, excellent fighter. So in point fighting, I would say I'll give it to Bill. I might be a little bit more prejudiced towards Jean-Yves Thériault for some of the fights that the Iceman did because I love this guy. And by the way, one day we'll get him on your show and stuff. So Jean-Yves, because Jean-Yves was, Benny Urquidez was an all-around extremely good fighter. He could knock you out with a left hand, a right hand, kicks, punch, move around. Nothing to say about Benny Urquidez, top of the line. I saw him fight in Vegas against one of the Japanese champions, and of course he won. He's very good. But I've seen Jean-Yves fight all the time. Jean-Yves Thériault is the nicest person on the planet, or one of the nice person. He's a good friend, more than a brother to me. But the Iceman is a completely different person. The Iceman gave me so many thrills and chills, you know, watching him fight. But I could spend a month with Jean-Yves Thériault in a phone booth, and it would be great. The Iceman, I would spend an hour or two with him because he's a pain in the ass. He's aggressive. He's a killer, you know. But as far as being a fighting machine, this guy is unbelievable. So I would put those two in my good books, but they're not alone. So put it there.
Love that guy. Jean-Yves Thériault. Best of all time. Best of all time.
When you come to Ottawa, I'll make sure we go and see him.
Yeah. It's from Jacket River, New Brunswick.
Yes, yes. Another good Acadien.
Moi aussi.
Je sais, I know.
You've answered this one a little bit, so you can move through it quickly or break it open. If you could come back in 100 years, what do you want to see in the martial arts?
You know, I just want to see where they're at. Like, go back to point fighting, though. Go back to the early 60s when there was a Wazari half point, a Hippon for a full point. It was hard punching and kicking, but it was lousy. At the bottom, at the end of the day, it was not that great. But the people tried hard. Then it got to be a little bit more skilled and a little bit better. Then Taekwondo came in and guys could kick faster and punch. They put it all together. Then semi-contact, full contact. Then that led to kickboxing, and that led to MMA. The MMA fighters of today are not like they were 10, 20 years ago, all right? So they were barroom fighters. Today they are extremely well trained, and it comes back to what I said earlier. They've got a team of trainers, just not one guy. And if you say he weighs 200 pounds, well, it's not just in the gut because he's prepared for that. So 100 years from now, I'd love to be a fly on the wall and watch the guys in any martial arts fighting and training and see how things are going. I can only imagine if we look at the progress for the last 50, 60 years, which I've seen, it's dramatic. It's an incredible change. Imagine in 100 years from now, if man is still alive and the dojos are working and the pandemic's closed and we're all having fun. I think I'd love to be a fly on the wall.
So I realized that question 9 was a bit of a joke I'd written for Hanshi Legacy, so we'll skip that one. If number 10, if martial arts just didn't exist at all, you can't invent them, they don't exist, what would be your other first choice to dedicate all this time and energy to in a life lived over?
When I was young in the 60s, it was the British invasion for music. And a lot of friends were playing in band. Yes, there's extremely good music. And I love music. You know, I train with music. I walk with music. I love to dance. You know, I've got the Alexa, and then I'll go to it and I'll say, play me some Ray Charles music, because I'm going to be shaving, and I just boost, you know, I just jack it up. My wife knows I'm shaving and jumping in the shower. So I think I would, but I did not have what it took to be a musician. I didn't have the skills. But I think that if martial arts are non-existent, I think I would have loved to be a musician, either a musician or maybe a writer. I appreciate people who can write nice things. I'm learning on my own how to write, and I'm not great at it, but I think a musician would be great. And I'm a rock and roller, so, you know, I'm a big fan of the Beatles, except if I was a musician, I'd like to play with the Rolling Stones. They're older, they're more.
Yes.
Yes. That's rock and roll, baby. You know?
I feel the exact same.
What instrument, Hanshi, would you be playing? Hanshi Therien, what instrument?
I don't know, maybe guitar, because you can play, if you play guitar, you can, you know, if you play drums, you can't carry a set of drums with you wherever you go. But if you play guitar in a rock band, you can have a flat top and you could hum a song, or you can play. I think guitar would be great. Yeah, but my next life, I might try it.
That's good. So you can play guitar, and Sensei Legacy can play drums, and Sean Benson is a great musician. He can sing or play any of the other instruments. And Sensei Suino and I can stand around at the front of the stage with swords and make sure that nobody bothers you guys.
That's awesome. It's like the Stones with the Hells Angels at Altamont. You're just like, no, getting up here.
I know that story pretty well. But it was, and you know what, Tusi? It's like, right now you got to see where I'm training for the last 2 months, because everything was closed. I live in a condo that is on 4 unit on one side, 4 unit on the other side, and in between there's lockers, and it's all cement and doors. It's like if you're in solitary confinement and waiting for the electric chair, right? and I can do 30 steps and back 30 steps. And I do an hour to an hour and a half. The filtration of air is not good. It's hot as hell, but it's like walking in, almost like walking in a sauna. So when you do your workout and you go in, you go back, you need to have something that pushes you. So music is what pushes me in there. Or I'll listen to the show. I need something. Otherwise, my wife won't do it. She's a great athlete. She trains hard, but she will not walk. She say, come and walk with me. No, that place gives me the creeps. It's insane to do that, you know? So, but the music pushed me. And depending on my mood, if I'm in, today I spent 1 hour, Wally Slokey called me, and I know he's not going to hang up in 10 minutes. So I pushed the button. I said, you're walking with me, my friend. So I did this for an hour with him. Then he hung up, and then I finished with the Rolling Stones. So it's good.
Good company.
So you would have liked one of the games I played with my girlfriend on the drive. I put on Abbey Road, start to finish, the Beatles.
Nice.
Then I put on Sticky Fingers, the Stones, and we tried to figure out which was the better album. Couldn't do it. So then I put on David Bowie, Ziggy Stardust, Spiders from Mars. And I'm not going to lie, I was kind of like, I'm not sure this isn't better than both of those other ones. I mean, it's such a good album. Anyways, there's no right answer, but it was a glorious drive through Quebec with those.
You need that. I have good music from my car, but if I'm alone, I'll put the music on. If I'm with my wife, she's my time, you know, and we're locked in the car, so we drive 4 or 5 hours. We enjoy it.
So I've got a question from one of my students. He texted it to me. He can't be watching tonight. He always catches up on YouTube. Alden Adair. He's one of our black belts and my top student who also teaches here in Toronto. And he asked this about karate, but I want to ask you about jiu-jitsu, all martial arts. What's practical about karate, jiu-jitsu, and how has this changed since its origins in either Okinawa or Japan?
I think the sport that came in changed it, because before there was sport, there was self-defense. And you know, when you train in karate, every school had a makiwara, and you trained to punch hard because everything was based on one blow. It was not like boxing and dancing around and jabbing and then throwing the right. But you would be in your fighting stance, and that right hand or left hand, whatever, if you're a southpaw, would come out to be very, very powerful. And then when the sport came in, and also just to prove my point, almost every school in the 60s and 70s, or part of the 70s, had a makiwara, but they also did breaking. They also practiced punching to break and everything else. Judo was not a striking, but if you mess with a judo guy, be ready for the dance, my friend, because they're tough guys. So all of that, when sport came along for sport karate, it was really good and really tough. So what I said earlier, and then it got watered down as a little bit later. Now it's based on speed. So as a coach, I adapt to the situation and to the game. But going back for all, I think sport, martial arts is a two-way street. There's a fork. You start, you learn a few things. Then there's the sports side, which is great. I love to watch. And then there's the business side, the martial arts side, the training side, and everything on the other one, minus the sport. So both of them are separate. So I think sport would have done. Don't get me wrong. I mentioned how great MMA are, right? How great kickboxing was, how great point fighting was. So that's not demeaning it. But I think the sport changed the fact that for self-defense, how many times now you teach students fingers to the eyes? Not many, you know, because I just thought of that because I forgot the last time I was teaching that. And doing a shin kick where you're this much off the ground, boom, to the guy's shin, and then you follow up with a hook or something in the situation. I think it was meant more for self-defense back in the days than today.
And then part two of his question is, what is spiritual for you in martial arts and what isn't, and why?
I think spiritual for me in the martial arts is to work with everybody, to pass forward what you learn. Sometimes I will do, I teach a fair amount of seminars, and when I'm teaching, I'll see somebody that is working really, really hard, but they are good. And I don't mind telling them that they are good, because when you're at a certain level that you are, that I am, and everybody in between, it's great to hear it from one of us that you are good. So that's part of the spiritual side. Another side is that we teach for the right reasons. Like, I bow to you and I bow on the mat, and that's called respect. And respect is a two-way street. If you give respect, you will have respect. And that comes into the spiritual side. I'll go somewhere, and when you fly and you're alone, you got somebody sitting on your left and on your right for the next 7-8 hours if you're going to Europe. And they're going to start talking a little bit, and then they ask you what you do. If you say martial arts, you're in for a long flight, because you better be ready, because they're fascinated with it. And they'll say, my cousin, because they're from Europe, and they'll say, my cousin does karate. Do you know him? Yeah. What belt is he? He's yellow belt. All right. And where does he live? In Edmonton. Ah, yes, I know him. Of course. So you learn sometimes not to say anything. And I mean, this is me. Well, if I'm in a mood to chat for the whole flight, maybe I'll mention that I'm in sports. That's why I claim it, or I do martial arts. But sometimes I've had flights and people ask me, or they had a t-shirt, a martial arts t-shirt, and those were great, great trips. So yeah. So the spiritual side is to pass it forward, and is to be kind to the people that you're with. And when my phone rings, my cell phone, my wife put a music tone from the Beatles, and it's called Help. And I laugh and I say, well, why did you put that on? She says, 9 calls out of 10 is somebody needs help, and you never say no, and you help them out, which is true. And I'm proud to say I do that. But then I do something and I need something. I pick up the phone and I call, and nobody says no, unless they can't, of course. So that's the two-way street, and that's the spiritual side of martial art brings you that, If everything was physical and strictly physical for a fight, at my age, I'd go to Canadian Tire and I'd buy a nice Cooper, and with that, I think I even the odds for me, so the spiritual side is what keeps me going. Yeah.
Thanks for that. I just looked at my watch and I thought we'd been at this 35 minutes, and I'm not fucking exaggerating. I realized it's an hour and 35 minutes. So before we go around the horn and wind down with you, Hanshi, we were chatting about this on one of the other shows that you might have seen. Do you have an MMA GOAT, an MMA greatest of all time?
MMA, I'm sorry?
Our greatest of all time? Like we were chatting about like GSP or Anderson Silva.
Well,
do you have any guys you love in the ring, in the cage?
Well, I'm a fan of GSP for the only reason that GSP is a good guy. He's Canadian. He's won, and I'm going to tell you a little anecdote about his last fight. His last fight, he fought a division higher in weight, and he had been retired for 2-3 years. He had been out of commission, and he's coming back for the fight. The money was great and everything. Now, what people may not know, GSP's hero when he was a kid was Jean-Yves Thériault. Jean-Yves, he was from Quebec, Montreal area, and his dad would go to the fight and he'd watch him on TV. So one day, like, George has got his own private school, and Victor Thériault, who's Jean-Yves' brother, black belt with me, is very good to train you for striking and do the pad work. And George has this unbelievable, beautiful training place, and it's not advertised, it's private. So Vic is there and he tells Jean-Yves, he says, just come in and see me. George is there, don't say a word, come in through this door, I'll leave it unlocked. Well, GSP's in the ring and he saw Jean-Yves, oh my God, stop. The Iceman is here, So there's that bond. And once in a while they text. His last fight, we had the Canadian Black Belt Hall of Fame in Ottawa, at the Lac Lémy Casino Hilton Hotel in Gatineau. And we also had Capital Conquest. So because George was fighting, we said, George, there's going to be 300 of us. We're going to finish the dinners so we can go and see your fight. And what happened is the casino put it in their theater. And if you see the theater, it's beautiful. It's like Las Vegas, it's glamour. So we bought, Jean-Yves Thériault and I bought 300 tickets. If I tell you what we paid, you'd hang up and call me stupid. But our friends, we invited everybody in the Hall of Fame. Some of the instructors that we gave them the tickets. We didn't sell them. We said, let's go and encourage George. But when he took the fight, and I'm going to rewind and then come back after. George said, what do you think? And Jean-Yves says, I wouldn't do it. He says, when you're retired, your mind, you're anxious to do it again, but you're not in the same program. Anyhow, he took the fight. And if you saw the fight, he almost lost it. And he had some trouble, and then he won. He won that fight. About, that day, he texted Jean-Yves. And Jean-Yves says, it's 300 of us cheering for you tonight, Jen. Let's take this home. So 10 days, 2 weeks after the fight, Jean-Yves got a text from George. He says, I know what you mean now. And you're retired, stay retired. So, I like George for what he represents. Mm-hmm. You know, I can bring my grandchildren to see George. Not so sure about Conor McGregor. I'd go and see him and have fun and spend a day or two with him. But George is a great ambassador. And he will live in everybody's spirit for a long, long time. Like him and Jean-Yves Thériault are two of the same. The quiet, the French Canadians, devoted training to what they do. So I would say George, yeah.
Right on. And Neil Prime just chipped in, and this will be the last question we'll take from those of you watching. Thank you so much. What do you think about the Mike Tyson-Roy Jones Jr. fight that's coming up?
I thought about that. Well, about 2-3 hours before I got on tonight. And first of all, Neil, nice to hear from you. Big friend of Bill Wallace, Neil Prime. So I think that this is not going to be an exhibition. Yeah. Mike Tyson is going to go there and Roy is good, but these guys are top notch. Do you think they're going to start the dance in Powder Puff? Like hell. Somebody's going to hit somebody, and then the sparks are going to go. So if you get a chance to watch that fight, it's going to be a rough fight. Try to look on YouTube, I think. You could see the fight, exhibition fight, Bill Wallace, Joe Louis. They were about 45 years old. And Bill was about 50, 60 pounds lighter than Joe. 5 rounds. Check that out. And then book yourself to watch Iron Mike and Roy. Because I tell you, there's no way that I see this being a fun fight. You know, somebody might walk out of there -1 ear if it really escalates.
Sensei Suino, I see you lighting up there thinking about this, yeah?
Well, I was going to ask that same question. I saw that, I think, the press today about Tyson versus Roy Jones. And, of course, all the ear-biting jokes, have come back. I don't see Roy Jones and Mike Tyson in the same ring. If Mike and Mike, if you've seen his physique, right, and if you've seen any of his training footage,
whoa,
he's old, but that guy is back. I don't want to be Roy Jones. I just think, right?
Roy Jones.
There's a couple of videos of him like showing guys where he's slipping punches just in midair and throwing punches. Like,
that's what I mean.
You would not want to be there.
Right.
They're both different fighters, my friend. One is all about knockouts. All about knockouts. So do you think he's going to start to do the Muhammad Ali shuffle? Like hell. He's going to be a razor type, walk in there and try to destroy. And I think at first there's respect. And I think that they're both skilled, both great champions, 100%, love both of them. So when the fight starts, it's going to be, but somebody's going to get hit, and then all hell's going to break loose. And especially if it's Tyson that gets hit, and if he gets hit flush, watch out, guys. Sparks are going to happen. This is my take. And anyhow, I'm going to watch it. So we'll be there in September.
Awesome. It looks like you're agreeing there, Sensei Dauphin, with that assessment.
It'd be good.
Yeah. So sadly, we have to wind down. Hanshi, I said this last time, but I'm just so excited to see you in person. I'm so excited, whether it's at your dojo or you come and do a seminar with us. You know, it's one of the great gifts of this show for us is meeting, you know, I don't know you terribly well, but now I'm getting to, and, you know, when we get to see each other in 3D, I'm just going to give you the biggest hug and bow as deeply as I can, because I really respect and appreciate everything you say. And just the fact that you're giving us your time with this, it's a real pleasure.
Well, I appreciate it, and I accept coming here. You guys treat me so nice. You know, you make me feel important, and it's great. And anytime you're in Ottawa, let's get together. And when everything opens up, maybe I'll go down your way and do a seminar. And for Capital Conquest, I still have to wait. I can't do Capital Conquest with 2 meters distance. That would be stealing from the people, and it's not about what I do. So I'll decide in early September if I'm doing or whatever I'm doing with that. So
Right
until
on.
then, let's keep on kicking, guys.
Right on. And then do any other senseis want to chip in as we like to do? Sensei Suino, you want to?
Let me pass it on. I'd like to hear what
Yep.
other people have to say.
Sensei Dauphin?
I think you should let Sensei Legacy speak unless people want me to speak.
Just winding us down for the night to say, is there anything you want to say or ask or just take us out on?
It was simply a pleasure. Like, he's a very well-known martial artist, and we got some good angles on the martial arts today and yesterday and possibly even tomorrow, what it projects into. And you need a man like that who's got his finger on everything to help you out.
Thank you, my friend. And you're a brother from the Canadian Black Belt Hall of Fame. You're a brother from being a French Canadian, and you're a brother in the Brotherhood of Martial Arts. So anytime you guys are in town, all of you, we all get together. I might even have a couple of cold beers somewhere. We'll find something.
Merci beaucoup.
Ça me fait plaisir, mon ami. Go Abs, go, man.
Yeah, merci beaucoup. Everybody watching, next week we have Hanshi Cesar Burkowski. Very excited about this. When I actually was needing to do a 10-page essay for my Nidan, he was one of the people who helped me immensely talk about the history of martial arts in Canada. You know, I've met him a number of times, and the other gentleman in the call know him much better than me. Log in, register for that. And as always, the people watching, thank you for your support. This is beautiful. Sensei Dauphin?
Well, I'm not sure that Sensei Suino didn't want to say something more. Did you just want to totally pass, Sensei Suino?
Yeah, I'm good. I'd love to hear what you have to say, if anything.
Okay, I do want to say a couple of things. I just wanted to be sure that my seniors had a chance to speak before me, but I definitely have something to say. You know, Sensei Therien, you said it, like my last name is Dauphin, so I'm excited that I am also French Canadian, also a Montreal Canadiens fan, and also a martial artist. So I'm happy to be in that line with you and Hanshi Legacy. I always leave these chats thinking of things. You know, one thing, I'll never listen to the Beatles song Help Again and not think of you. Like every time I ever hear that song, I'm always going to think of you, which is a great thing. I really love what you said when you said that it was your calling and it came to get you. You didn't come after it. It came to get you. I'll be thinking about that a lot over the coming weeks. And, you know, I can't help but think of your Joan of Arc belt, and I'm going to be thinking about that, and that your belt didn't burn when the dojo burned. That's different things like that have happened. I've heard different martial artists say different things, and different things like that have happened to me. I don't think it's a coincidence. And I just want to say, Hanshi, that I think you're a complete martial artist, both physically, your teaching abilities, business-wise, promotions, your contacts. You're truly a complete martial artist. And I'm super blessed to be on these calls. Thank you so much for the time that you give to me and all the doors that you're opening. And thanks to Sense of Legacy, Sense of Suino, Sean Benson, and all the people who are signing in here. I don't know, I say it every week. Sometimes I can't even believe the life that I'm living. Like, I'm like, I can't believe this life and this path that I'm on, but super happy I'm on it.
And just for me in closing, everybody that's listening to me, do not miss Cesar Borkowski Hanshi next week. Best historian this country's ever produced, and not a bad martial artist at all. He's got things to say. Listen to him. You'll be raving about next Thursday. So I'm gonna park myself here at noon so I make sure I get in. You know?
Well, thank you for that, Hanshi. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, senseis, for being on this call with us, and we'll see you next week, everybody.
Take care. Bye-bye. Stay safe.
Bye.